Chapter 131, A Leopard Can't Change Its Spots. Fang Hao drove around the county town, suddenly deciding to explore the properties around the school district. After his divorce, he was determined to fight for custody of Tian at any cost. Once he secured the custody, he planned to send Tian to study in the county town. He couldn't let his parents live in the countryside anymore. After buying a house, he intended to have his parents live there, taking care of the child. Living in the town would reduce the gossip from neighbors, making it more acceptable for his parents. Of course, if he really got divorced, his parents would have to accept it, whether they liked it or not. In front of a newly opened residential area, he just parked his car when he noticed a couple walking out, and it felt very awkward. It was his class flower, the ex-wife of his friend Wei Wen, arm in arm with a bald old man, walking towards him intimately. The class flower's body was pressed against the old man, her full chest against his arm. From their posture, they looked like an affectionate couple. In fact, that old man was the adulterer who caused Wei Wen's divorce. Fang Hao immediately took out his phone, dialed the class flower's number, chuckled, and said, "Miss Class Flower, do you have time now?" He watched as the class flower, still holding on to the old man, answered the call. Her words made him feel like he was watching a drama. The class flower said, "I'm buying groceries." "What's up, Dr. Fang? What brings you here? Buying groceries? Is the old lover next to you your grocery?" Fang Hao coldly sneered in his heart. Still, he spoke sweetly, "I was just wondering, Miss Class Flower, have you and Wei Wen reconciled? I happen to be on vacation, and if you've made up, I'd like to treat you both to a meal in Jiangdong City. I've talked to him. He said he wants to explore the south for 6 months. After that, we'll remarry." "Okay, we'll wait for you then." Fang Hao hung up, seeing the class flower also ending the call. She and the old man got into a very ordinary sedan and left. A leopard can't change its spots. Disgusting. Suro, you're probably the same. Women who cheat don't stop at just one affair. They will keep betraying as long as the adulterer is alive. Because a woman's affair involves emotions and genuine love for the other person. Suro, you can't turn back now. Suro, you're such a big liar. After the despicable couple left, Fang Hao walked into the sales office, inquired about the housing prices, and evaluated how much down payment he would need. The houses in the county town were still relatively cheap, around 3,000 per square meter. Moreover, the down payment only required 20%. After some calculations, Fang Hao estimated he needed around 100,000 yuan, which would be enough to pay the down payment. After the divorce, he decided to buy a house here. If not for buying it now, he would need a mortgage, and the name on the property certificate would have to include his wife's name. In small county towns, developers and banks were afraid that the property owners wouldn't be able to repay the loan. Therefore, when signing the property contract for married couples, both spouses had to be present to sign. This way, even if the husband ran away, the bank could still pursue the debt from the wife. Fang Hao couldn't tolerate any connection between his belongings and that despicable woman. Naturally, he couldn't allow his wife's name on the property certificate. Afterwards, he also called Wei Wen, who wasn't in the south but was hanging out with friends in the provincial capital. They planned to explore the south together in the future. In the next 2 days, Fang Hao stayed at home, treating his father. When his father's condition improved significantly, he briefed his mother and the uncles in the family. Only then did he return to the provincial capital. First, he went to the car wash, cleaned his Mercedes, refueled it, and then returned it to Lu Jing. However, Lu Jing didn't take back the car keys. She said, "Let me tell you something. The hospital just granted me a spot to attend a party school. When I come back, they want me to apply for the position of deputy dean. So, for a while, I won't be able to come to the hospital. Therefore, I need you to continue substituting for me. Also, you need to conduct regular checkups for old Zhang in the outskirts. Keep the car and the keys to my office. You are going to pursue a PhD, and you also need a quiet place. In my office, no one will disturb you." Fang Hao was surprised. He didn't expect Lu Jing to compete for the position of deputy dean. After some thought, it made sense. Lu Jing had connections in the hospital, and with years of experience, she was qualified for such a position. He asked a rhetorical question, "Is it time for the reshuffle?" "It will happen around May or June next year, but the handover and training have already begun. You know, it's an organizational rule. If you can accept it, that's good. If not, just go along with it. For example, even I don't understand how they decided to let me compete for the position of deputy dean. No, director, you are very suitable. Look, the leadership team needs a female leader. Originally, Director Lee from the obstetrics and gynecology department had a good chance, but she made a mistake, so she can't be promoted anymore. Now, there's only you left. That makes sense. It seems among the department heads, I and Director Lee are the only females. I did take advantage of my gender. No, Director, you deserve it. Fang Hao pondered. Director, you have at least taken advantage of your gender to be agreeable, unlike the master, who acts so aloof and pretentious. As soon as you obtain your PhD, I'll apply for you to become an associate chief physician or even a chief physician. Oh, when you come in, attend the meeting. Our outpatient department is having a meeting. Accompanied by Lu Jing, Fang Hao went to the meeting, and most of the staff members were present. She directly announced that she would be attending party school classes, leaving administrative work to Lu Jian. Medical matters would be delegated to Fang Hao and a few others. Ultimately, Fang Hao's opinion would prevail. Everyone was surprised, but considering Lu Jing's intention to cultivate Fang Hao, they had no choice but to comply. The head nurse felt regretful, she had offended Fang Hao so much before. Now, he was highly appreciated by the director, and whatever good prospects she left for him wouldn't be promising. Next, Lu Jing announced a team-building activity, taking everyone out for dinner tonight. Team building? The director indeed knew how to play the game. It seemed like the master had never taken him for team building. He was indeed too old-fashioned and conservative, or maybe he was just freeloading. Comparing the two, Fang Hao realized that the master hadn't contacted him recently, hadn't provided him with data and materials, and hadn't allowed him to write his thesis. Thinking about the master, Fang Hao's phone rang. It turned out to be a call from his mentor at Peking Union Medical College, Professor Zhu Shi, a professor in his 50s. Professor Zhu, hello, I'm Fang Hao. What can I do for you? Little Fang, I read the papers you sent me a few days ago. I've checked them, and your theoretical foundation is very solid. You managed to answer all the questions correctly. It's the first time in many years that I've seen someone get a perfect score on the doctoral exam, even if it was open book. You're excellent. Fang Hao was overjoyed and quickly replied, Professor Zhu, it's all thanks to your guidance. Professor Zhu said, I have a position as a clinical assistant in a department at Peking Union Medical College. Are you interested? Fang Hao suddenly understood that Professor Zhu also wanted to freeload on him. Of course, he would receive some living expenses, but this amount wouldn't satisfy him. Besides, Professor Zhu's thighs were definitely not as thick as Lu Jing's. Impossible. Lu Jing might become the deputy dean next year. Moreover, Lu Jing's husband had 500 properties. Considering the many issues with work, house loans, and children at home, he couldn't commit to full-time doctoral studies. After expressing various regrets and exchanging pleasantries, he politely declined. Professor, if I let you freeload on me for a few more years, how can I buy a house in Tianjifeng? Chapter 132, How can everything be perfect in the world? In life, one must know when to politely refuse, otherwise, it becomes truly exhausting. I'm not a babysitter, and I can't cater to everyone's needs. After hanging up the phone, Fang Hao instinctively looked for his wife's number, intending to inform her that he wouldn't be coming home for dinner. It had become a habit over the past 4 years. Whenever there was something at the hospital, even if it was just his master's paper correction, if it delayed his return home, Fang Hao would always inform his wife. But now, he had no intention of contacting that unfaithful woman. Today, he came directly from his hometown to the hospital without any phone contact with his wife. It felt strange. When he considered his wife as his career, she was everything. Now, he felt his wife was not worth it. A man should prioritize his career, and thoughts of his wife and family diminished in his mind. His unfaithful wife had given herself, both body and soul, to that adulterer for so many years. Such a woman was not worth keeping. The marriage was destined to end. As for his son, he would definitely be his own. Otherwise, if this matter escalated, he would see who would bear the consequences. Of course, tearing the family apart would cast a shadow on the child and bring shame to himself. If it could be avoided, he would try not to escalate the situation. At this moment, he had to increase his bargaining chips for the possible divorce in the future. He didn't want Lu Jing, Lu Yu, or even Han Yun to help him. Still, at least when Su Ro used her background and influence, Lu Jing and the others could offset some of his wife's background. A chess move, it was also a kind of competition. Next, Lu Jing and Fang Hao briefly discussed Zhang Jun's recovery. There was some improvement, but the progress was not ideal. Fang Hao comforted her. After all, very few people in the world could survive advanced stage cancer. Illness comes like a mountain and leaves like unraveling threads. The chosen location for the team-building event wasn't the most high-end, but it was quite good. The expenses weren't fully reimbursed by the department, especially with the current situation of departments being evaluated for revenue generation. Lu Jing wasn't short of money, and she would provide some subsidies. After all, this also affected her department's ranking in revenue generation. Fang Hao didn't drink because he had to drive. Lu Jing drank quite a bit and was a bit drunk. In the end, the head nurse assisted her into the car, and Fang Hao agreed to take her home. When Lu Jing arrived home, there was a nanny waiting outside the gate to receive her. Fang Hao and the head nurse didn't go inside. Lu Jing's house had a domed roof, high windows, and Roman columns, typical of European and American styles, but it exuded a sense of dignity and grandeur. What a pair of long legs, Fang Hao had to hold onto them tightly. Fang Hao took out a cigarette and lit it. In the car, the head nurse saw Fang Hao still holding a cheap cigarette and felt dissatisfied. She said, "Why are you smoking in director's car, and it's such a cheap one, a few yuan a pack?" Fang Hao ignored her. He drove to the intersection outside the neighborhood and stopped, saying, "Get out of the car, take a taxi home." "Don't, Fang Hao, it's inconvenient to get a taxi here, and it's still early. Let's go for a few more drinks." The head nurse was driving a Mercedes with $1 million price tag. It was very comfortable, and she wanted to experience it again. Moreover, she had had a few drinks tonight, was in a good mood, and was a bit emotional. Seeing Fang Hao being favored by the director, she believed that Fang Hao was a potential stock. Tonight, she wanted to try something with this super handsome guy. She thought the old cow wanted to eat tender grass. Fang Hao set the navigation to the outskirts and said, "I'm going to the outskirts. If you don't get out of the car now, it will be even more difficult for you to get a taxi when we reach the outskirts." "Why are you going to the outskirts?" "None of your business." Fang Hao was someone who held grudges. The head nurse had been difficult for him before, and he would have hated to see her stepping on him. If he hadn't given face to Lu Jing just now, he wouldn't have let the head nurse into the car at Lu Jing's doorstep. Colleague? Nonsense. After the other party got out of the car, he left directly. He went to the rehabilitation center in the outskirts and arrived exactly at 10 o'clock. Zhang Jun hadn't slept. He was engrossed in watching a sketch comedy performance by a certain domestic cloud society. These big shots wouldn't watch variety shows because they involved actors performing, which they considered artificial. Fang Hao noticed that the caregiver was a beautiful woman peeling fruit for Zhang Jun. "Younger brother, you're here. How is my dad? If you don't take him home, I'll introduce the best orthopedic specialist in China to treat him." Zhang Jun, upon seeing Fang Hao, stood up directly, pleased, and walked slowly toward him. "Zhang Gu, don't move. Just stay seated." Fang Hao quickly walked up, supporting Zhang Jun and guiding him back to his seat. Zhang Jun then said to the woman beside him, "This is my lifesaver and also my recognized younger brother, Fang Hao. If it weren't for him, I'm afraid I would have died this time." "Hello, Dr. Fang Hao. Your reputation precedes you, and meeting you in person today truly confirms your talents." The beautiful woman also extended her hand, shaking hands with Fang Hao. Her tone was gentle, and her voice was pleasant, making people feel very comfortable. Her eyes shimmered with an indescribable shrewdness. Turning back to Zhang Jun, she asked, "You said your father fell on his waist? When did it happen?" "When I came in the evening, Uncle was perfectly fine." "Oh, my younger brother's father fell. My younger brother is my brother, and his father is my father. I didn't say anything wrong, right?" Zhang Jun laughed heartily, noticing Fang Hao's skepticism about his relationship with the beautiful woman. He then asked her to leave. He directly said to Fang Hao, "She is my personal secretary in business. During my treatment here, she has been helping manage my business. She's very intelligent and trustworthy. She learned that I was here for rehabilitation, so she came to keep me company and alleviate my boredom." After some thought, he continued, "Brother, you're so clever. You could see the relationship between her and me at a glance. It's a common mistake men make. Wealthy people naturally wouldn't lack women. Monogamy was virtually non-existent for the wealthy. This woman was your mistress, and I understand. Fang Hao still had some doubts on his face, and he asked, what about Director Liu? Zhang Jun replied, she knows. I didn't hide it from her. I was upfront with her and gave her a choice. Either she gives up being a doctor and comes to help me run the business, or I go into business, and she won't have a partner by her side. She insisted on being a doctor and knew I wouldn't separate from her. So, she tacitly agreed. They even had lunch together at noon. You're impressive. Fang Hao gave Zhang Jun a thumbs up. Indeed, a man who owned 500 properties could handle 2 women. Would there be any difficulty in managing 2 women when he already managed 500 properties? This mindset was something Fang Hao didn't support. He loved only one person, his wife. However, unfortunately, his wife had also cheated on him. Alas, how can everything be perfect in the world? Chapter 133, Little Sister-in-Law. Zhanggu, how about I give you a diagnosis and check up? This was Fang Hao's intention. Brother, I've been restless these days, just waiting for you to come. I don't feel right without acupuncture, Zhang Jun responded, instinctively lying back on the bed to let Fang Hao examine him. Fang Hao took Zhang Jun's pulse, reviewed the latest medical reports, and made a rough estimate. Zhanggu, I won't hide it from you. The discomfort you're feeling is because resistance to the medication has developed. I mentioned this to you before, it's a normal occurrence. Of course, you can continue with this medicine or switch to a similar one domestically. You can't stop it. You can also feel that you're doing better than when you were in the hospital. That's a good sign. Yes, it's developed resistance. I thought the symptoms had recurred. Zhang Jun breathed a sigh of relief, especially after Fang Hao performed acupuncture. He felt a surge of energy in his body, making him feel even better. He said, your dad is fine, right? He's fine. He fell down the stairs, didn't tell me, and delayed treatment for 3 or 4 days. But these past few days of treatment, when I came, there was no major issue. Ah, you're the best doctor. I even wanted to introduce you to a hospital and specialists. It seems like I'm searching with a lantern for a lantern, haha. Zhanggu, you're too kind. Fang Hao saw the secretary bringing in a new fruit plate and, glancing at Zhang Jun, asked, does it hurt? Not at all, very comfortable. Zhang Jun said to Fang Hao, I told her that under your acupuncture, I can feel a kind of energy. She thought I was boasting. Can you prove it to her? This sister-in-law is healthy, no need for acupuncture. Sister-in-law, don't call me that. Add a little to it, call me little sister-in-law. Haha, let's go with little sister-in-law. Shang Yun concurred. You two are really in harmony. However, Fang Hao had no envy. He had a traditional mindset, desiring only one wife to grow old with. Unfortunately, his wife had already cheated on him, casting a shadow over his beliefs. He said, alright, little sister-in-law, if you don't mind, I'll take your pulse. Then I can prove it to you. No problem. Little sister-in-law cooperated, extending her hand for Fang Hao to check her pulse. Zhang Jun watched with interest. After Fang Hao finished checking her pulse, he said, well, little sister-in-law, if you don't mind, I'll give you a quick acupuncture to relieve the tension and soreness in your shoulders. Great. You're right. I've been feeling like there's been a heavy burden on my shoulders recently. Little sister-in-law was delighted because her shoulder pain had persisted for many years. She had been to the hospital for an examination, showing some signs of shoulder periarthritis. However, Fang Hao's pulse diagnosis revealed this. How should it be treated, she asked. Acupuncture. Do I need to undress? No, it's fine through the clothes. Fang Hao took out the needles and had little sister-in-law sit down. He began needling the area just below her shoulder blades. Hey, brother Jun, I also feel a warm force moving inside my shoulders. Is that the qi? Little sister-in-law shared her experience. Exactly, that warm force. My younger brother said it's not qi, it's the effect of nerve conduction. But I think it's qi, Zhang Jun laughed. Fang Di, you're amazing. You really are a legendary doctor. Little sister-in-law gave Fang Hao a thumbs up. You're too kind. Fang Hao modestly acknowledged, but inwardly, he was satisfied. He held on to the thighs of Lu Jing and his little sister-in-law, only by doing so could he grasp onto Zhang Jun's thighs. After completing the acupuncture session, little sister-in-law stood up, stretched her arms, and was pleasantly surprised to find that the persistent soreness that had troubled her for so long was gone. Zhang Jun's treatment had similarly shown positive results, and he felt much more at ease. Glancing at the time, Fang Hao said, "Zhang Gu, it's quite late, and I won't disturb you any longer." "Wait." Zhang Jun asked little sister-in-law to step outside first. In a hushed tone, he asked Fang Hao, "Brother, we're all men here, and I won't stand on ceremony. In my current situation, can I engage in intimate activities?" Fang Hao replied, "It's best not to force it right now. As for when it's possible, your body will give you signals." Somewhat baffled, he thought, "You've just had surgery for a few days, and you're already yearning for intimacy? What happened to cherishing your life after escaping death's grasp? What signals?" The best scenario is having a romantic dream, and the next best thing is experiencing morning arousal. I don't encourage anything else. Besides, Zhang Gu, you don't seem to be the kind who's starving for affection. Well, you've seen most of my family members. Have you noticed that beneath my glossy exterior, there are still unsatisfactory aspects? And you and the director don't have children? Fang Hao suddenly remembered that he hadn't seen any family or child photos on Lu Jing's desk, and he hadn't heard her interact with children during this time. In contrast, his master, despite wearing the cuckold's hat, still frequently communicated with his child. "No, we're both healthy with no issues. We've tried in vitro fertilization, and not just once. It didn't work with Lu Jing, your little sister-in-law, or other women I've tried. I don't know what the problem is." Fang Hao frowned. Zhang Jun's situation was somewhat special. He thought for a moment and said, "Zhang Gu, focus on recovering for now, and we can discuss this matter later." "Right, I, Zhang Jun, have never accepted defeat in my life, be it in my career or with women. If I really can't have children, I can't accept it." Fang Hao didn't say much, offered a few words of comfort, and then took his leave. He went to another recuperation villa, which belonged to his mother-in-law. Without entering, he could see his mother-in-law discussing something with her graduate student, Fei Fei. He cleared his throat at the door, and Fei Fei opened it. "Fang Hao, why aren't you resting so late? Did your boss give you a raise?" Graduate students usually referred to their advisors as bosses because advisors provided financial support. The subsidy from the country was barely enough for meals in the school canteen. "We finished our research project, and the professor gave us a big red envelope. Come on in, I'll wash my face." Fei Fei was not only delighted to see Fang Hao, the handsome guy, but also because the research project was completed. Earlier, she and Zhoufen had discussed the details of the paper. Fang Hao had provided a brilliant idea, allowing them to make rapid progress. Once inside, Fei Fei asked with excitement, "Fang Hao, how's your father-in-law?" "He's fine. When I came, the pain was gone, and the swelling had reduced." Fang Hao sat by the bed, and when Fei Fei extended her hand, he proceeded to check her pulse. As he was doing this, someone entered from outside. It was his wife. Fang Hao furrowed his brow. He couldn't understand why his wife had come at this time. "Oh, someone must have reported to her that I'm here, and that's why she came. A private detective?" It seemed so. Chapter 134, No Good People. Fang Hao gently placed his mother-in-law's hand back and said, "They're all improving. In about 10 days, the surgical incisions will completely heal, and with some recuperation, there shouldn't be any issues. Later on, through dietary adjustments, complete recovery is possible." "Hey, Fang Hao, why aren't you doing acupuncture now? I feel like acupuncture would be more effective." His mother-in-law asked, trusting Fang Hao's words completely. "Okay, I'll give you another acupuncture session tomorrow. It's quite late now, you shouldn't be working on your research. Get some rest." Fang Hao didn't say much, left, and placed the medicine box in his car. "Husband, why aren't you looking at me? Haven't you noticed anything different about me?" His wife followed Fang Hao, not getting into her car but climbing into Fang Hao's Mercedes. This car did seem better than hers, both in terms of interior and overall luxury. Fang Hao looked over, his pupils narrowing. "You've cut your hair? Is that necessary?" "Yes, long hair consumes nutrients. I'm afraid there won't be enough for the little one," his wife said. She had cut her hair into a bob, didn't paint her nails, and didn't use lipstick. Her face was naturally beautiful, with fair skin that didn't require cosmetics or skin care. During their marriage, she had gone for a natural look because makeup seemed to diminish her beauty. Even the makeup artist at the time was envious, almost getting infatuated with Fang Hao. At that time, Fang Hao was captivated. Now, Fang Hao didn't even spare her a glance, making her very unhappy. However, she didn't know that in Fang Hao's eyes, she was playing the fool. "Ah, you should listen to me, get rid of it." Fang Hao sighed. He was already showing great restraint. "Husband, do you really disdain me so much now? What do I have to do for you to believe me? I don't want to argue. I'm very tired now, I just want to go back and sleep." Fang Hao dismissed the conversation and didn't want to speak anymore. Seeing his former classmate and the old man together again made him feel very pathetic. The last time he returned home and saw his former classmate, she was in tears, regretful, and wanting to continue with Wei Wen. But now, after only a few days, she went to find the old man. Women who cheat don't return to their previous state of mind. At that moment, Fang Hao realized the profound meaning of the saying, "There's no greater sorrow than a heart that is dead." His wife was no longer worth it. "Husband, alright, I'll drive. You haven't noticed anything different about me? How do you want me to act for you to believe me? I don't want to fight. I'm very tired right now, I just want to go back and sleep." Fang Hao stopped talking and walked to the back seat. He adjusted the seat, lay down, and soon fell asleep. "Husband." His wife called a few times but got no response from the back seat. She felt dissatisfied. When they reached home, Fang Hao woke up. He realized they were at his mother-in-law's villa. "Why are we here?" His wife said, "You're home now, and I need to find time to visit my mom. I'm busy with both ends, and I haven't had time to take care of our child, so I've been staying here these past few days." "Husband, are you really going to be so distant? If that's the case, you've worked hard. You can stay here, I'll get my things and go back." Fang Hao now found this house quite disgusting. There wasn't a single good person in this house. Su Buiyuan played with women, Su Rou had an affair, and even his mother-in-law was biased. It was a different class, and Fang Hao didn't envy it. "Wife, my dad is at home. Can we not do this right now?" His wife's face showed a displeased expression. "What am I doing? You have someone outside, you've been with him, and I've let go. Do you want me to keep wearing the cuckold's hat and still say I love you? Do I have to lower myself and play the fool here? Su Rou, why do you have to do this?" "Fang Hao, I didn't make you wear the cuckold's hat. I didn't. How can I make you believe me? Do you really want me to die?" His wife said, "Fang Hao, if you doubt me, if you want to cold shoulder me, I can endure it because I haven't done anything wrong to you. The child in my belly is yours. Even if you deny it, I can raise it on my own. I can do all of this. But now, my mom just got out of the hospital, and my dad is at an old age. He's been worried about my mom's situation lately. If you're a man, don't make trouble over this matter." "Oh, your mom is out of the hospital, and she's recovering. After investigating me for so long, seeing that I haven't checked on you, you're feeling confident now? Unfortunately, Su Rou, you don't know what I've uncovered. Don't worry, I will find out who that person is because he's right next to me. You and he are playing hide and seek with me, treating me like a fool. When I find him, just wait and see. Your confidence today is so laughable." Fang Hao sneered and said, "That's right, I'll tell you now that I don't know who he is. But you must promise me that I'll find out on my own." After saying this, he went to open the inner room's door, found it locked, turned back to Su Rou, and said, "Didn't you ask me to go in? Open the door." Su Rou saw that Fang Hao looked very unfamiliar and seemed like an old hunter seeing his prey. She felt cunning. She gestured to Fang Hao not to speak nonsense. She walked over, wanting to pull Fang Hao into the car to have a good talk. But at this moment, the door opened, and Su Buiyuan appeared. Su Rou hurriedly twisted Fang Hao from behind, indicating for him not to say anything. "Dad, you haven't slept yet." Fang Hao frowned, then smiled and greeted. "Didn't you leave your hometown a long time ago? Why did you come back so late?" Su Buiyuan let Fang Hao in and then left. In the living room, there was another woman, the nanny aunt. When Fang Hao saw the nanny aunt, he was also taken aback. He remembered that his wife had said she had fired this nanny, but why was she still here? Forget it, this is indeed a family. Fang Hao walked in, intending to go to the study. "Oh, Fang Hao, didn't you see me? I'm also your elder, shouldn't you greet me?" The nanny aunt noticed Fang Hao and spoke directly. "Sis Fang, did I tell you before to apologize to your aunt? Did you not listen to me?" Fang Hao stopped, his face turning stern. However, when he turned around, he smiled. "I've been busy these past few days and forgot. Oh, aunt, if I did something wrong and upset you, please point it out, and I'll correct it. Here, I apologize sincerely." Su-ro saw the change in Fang Hao's expression. She saw another side of Fang Hao that made her feel eerie. She hurriedly said, "Dad, my husband has been busy all day, and he fell asleep in the car just now. Let him go to bed early." "Don't. If Aunt says I'm wrong, then I must be wrong. I have to apologize. If I don't figure out what I did wrong today, I won't be able to sleep." Fang Hao ignored Su-ro, stared at the nanny aunt, and said, "Please point out where I went wrong." As the nanny aunt was about to speak, Su-ro preemptively said, "Aunt, have you forgotten your identity? It's you who should apologize to Fang Hao. Your relationship with me doesn't compare to the relationship between Fang Hao and my in-laws. How could you let my in-laws clean here? Who told you to do that? Without your discretion, my in-laws wouldn't have fallen and hurt their backs. My dad asked you to do this job, and he paid you a salary. You should do your own work. Apologize to my husband immediately." Chapter 135, Cunning Husband. Fang Hao was a bit confused. Unexpectedly, his wife stood on his side. Of course, his wife's current behavior was more in line with her behavior over the past 4 years, very domineering. After all, she was a senior financial director of a large corporation, and the other party was just a nanny. Asking her husband to apologize to the nanny, especially in her presence, was a bit of an odd request. Perhaps Fang Hao had some leverage over her, planning to divorce her since she indeed had an affair. Therefore, she felt guilty. But in this house, she was also the mistress. The nanny was here to work for a salary, otherwise, why would she willingly do housework? If she received a salary, she was considered a servant. Did the mistress need to apologize to the servant? This was also the reason Fang Hao refused to apologize before. He wasn't a son-in-law who had come to the door. Even if he was going to divorce, did he still need to care about the face of the watchdog at home? His agreement to apologize just now was just to pretend to be a bit submissive so that Su-ro would agree to the divorce. "Hee, we're getting divorced, do I still need you to speak up for me?" "No need." Fang Hao sneered, and seeing the stunned expressions of Su Buiyuan and the nanny, the atmosphere quieted down. Breaking the silence, he said, "Aunt did nothing wrong, in fact, she did very well. My parents come from the countryside, they are naturally used to hard work. Doing some cleaning here is nothing to them. When my dad's back is better, I'll ask him to continue working. I'll remind him to be careful and not to fall on his own. Aunt, I see that the grass in the yard has grown, you don't need to touch it. Wait until my dad comes to do it." Fang Hao saw there was tea on the side. He quickly went over, poured a cup, and handed it to the nanny. He said, "I was too focused on talking just now and lacked sincerity. Now let me pour you a cup of tea, Aunt. Have a cup of tea, and consider my apology accepted." "Oh, I shouldn't be standing. I should be kneeling to you." Fang Hao said and actually knelt down, then handed the tea over. "Husband, what are you doing?" Su-ro was surprised. She knew Fang Hao was acting, but she still felt very unhappy, very glaring, and very slapped in the face. She walked up, took the cup of tea from Fang Hao's hand, and directly poured it onto the nanny's face. "Ah!" The nanny was surprised and quickly stood up, running to Su Buiyuan's side. Su Buiyuan stood up, looking very displeased. He said, "What are you doing? One with a red face, the other with a white face. Are you going to perform a play? Let's just let this matter pass, and don't bring it up again in the future. Both of you, go to sleep." "Okay, Dad, now that you've spoken, let's consider the matter closed. It's late, you should rest early." Fang Hao stood up, turned around, and walked towards the study. Su-ro also followed, seeing Fang Hao take a few books and a file. Holding them, ready to leave, she hurriedly asked, "Where are you going?" Fang Hao ignored her, came to the living room, saw Su Buiyuan hadn't gone into the room to rest yet, and said, "Dad, I need to go to the hospital at 4 o'clock to see an emergency patient. If I come back to open the door later, it will disturb your sleep. So, I'll go back first." Go ahead. Work is important." Su Buiyuan waved his hand, and the farce just now made him not want to see Fang Hao. Su-ro couldn't leave this time because the 2 children were still here. Moreover, after Fang Hao made a scene just now, he was indeed not suitable to stay here. Retreat is advancement? Fang Hao, when did you become so cunning? Su-ro knew that Fang Hao didn't have any patients at the hospital. Even if he did, there was no need to go at 4 a.m. The patients would be resting, and there would be nurses and doctors on duty. It wouldn't be Fang Hao's turn. However, this excuse seemed so natural. Because he was a doctor. Husband, do you hate me? Su-ro stood behind the window on the second floor, watching Fang Hao drive away. She subconsciously hugged herself. If you don't care about me, I won't care about you. Let's see who can persist to the end. Suddenly, Su-ro had a playful thought. If it were in the past, she would have done it without hesitation. But now, she had to consider it. Upon returning home, Fang Hao saw the empty house, and it didn't feel good in his heart. This place, which he had diligently managed for 4 years, had become the source of his greatest humiliation. How sad. Having just taken a nap in the car, he found himself devoid of the inclination to sleep at this moment. He went to the study, turned on the computer, and started writing a paper. He had promised Dr. Liu Yu, the head of the gynecology department, to write a paper and had received the necessary data. However, due to treating Zhang Jun or his mother-in-law and escorting his father home, he had been delayed for a few days. Dr. Liu had been kind to him, so since he promised, he should make an effort to write the paper. After spending 2 hours reviewing the treatment data, he formulated his ideas and began typing on the keyboard. This busy period extended into an all-nighter, and by 6 a.m., just as the sky was brightening, he left to go to the hospital. As he was leaving, he happened to see the next-door neighbors, a couple dressed in sportswear, going for a run. He was slightly surprised. This neighboring couple consisted of a teacher marrying a student, strictly speaking, an older husband with a younger wife. A thought occurred to him, why do women always prefer older men? Good morning, Teacher Dong. He politely greeted them. Dr. Fang, you're up early too. Dong Yunzhou saw Fang Hao holding a bunch of folders and thick professional books, and couldn't help but praise him. Rueli was in front, operating the elevator. Inside the elevator, she said, Dr. Fang, you look so energetic. Didn't you sleep last night? We're currently undergoing performance evaluations at the hospital, and the department is rushing to write papers. Fang Hao explained. Dong Yunzhou's expression became serious. Is your hospital doing this as well? Teacher Dong, I think it's similar everywhere. Fang Hao smiled knowingly and added, usually, everyone is busy with patients and accumulating data. When it's not needed, no one bothers to write these things. It's better to see more patients than to write a paper. True. Dong Yunzhou agreed, then asked, Dr. Fang, I know you're a doctor, but I don't know which department you're in or what your expertise is. I just joined the inpatient department, and I've been working on stroke research with my mentor. Now I've been transferred to the outpatient department, handling emergency cases. I have some understanding in various areas. Gynecology too. Dong Yunzhou looked at the professional catalog Fang Hao had revealed, and asked, you understand gynecology as well? Rueli added, last time, Xiaoro said Dr. Fang even went to the gynecology department and helped with deliveries. Well, I was conscripted. The leadership arranged it, and I had no choice. But I'm not good at gynecology. Fang Hao smiled awkwardly. For a grown man to work in the dirty and tiring gynecology department, it was inevitable to face some prejudice. Rueli smiled and said, you did so well even when conscripted, you must have a talent for it. Dong Yunzhou said with a hint of disdain, understanding even gynecology, isn't it dirty and tiring for a big man like you? Fang Hao chuckled, acknowledging the bias. A big man working in a department traditionally associated with women's health was indeed subject to some prejudice. As the elevator descended, Dong Yunzhou noticed that Fang Hao was opening the door of a Mercedes-Benz, a $1 million level luxury car. His expression couldn't help but change. If only I had chosen to study medicine back then.